last session here. Diehards in the room. This is the people we love, the true passion here. So our glide shot, what we're working on, right?
Yep.
Let's go back to 1953. Here we come. All right, Ross Walker, our last session. Thanks everybody for coming.
So, just once again, a disclaimer. I'm a left-handed rotational thrower, and I'm trying to do glide right-handed. Kind of how I got kind of thrown into this was 11 years ago. So, we had moved back to Wyoming, coached in Arizona, had a lot of success with a lot of our kids in Arizona, and my wife was coached by Bill Medina. When she was in Fort Collins, she drove up to Cheyenne, Wyoming, where the colonel had lived. She trained with him and had a very successful high school career, which propelled her to Arizona State. At the time, Colonel wanted to make sure that they were planning on moving to Arizona, but they did not tell my wife. They wanted her to make her decision. She had chosen Arizona State, and then they finally told her that they were planning on moving down there before she committed and signed. And the reason I bring this up is we're moving to Wyoming. We got there and we went to our first year at Ironwood to go coach. And if you've never been to Ironwood, it's an experience that you guys, I don't think, can ever equate putting into words. And so we're a week out, we're signed up to run events, and my wife gets a call from Jared Rome, who was the camp director at the time. And of course, Jared Rome, Olympic discus thrower, was kind of like a big idol for me. And my wife answers the phone and she goes, "Hey Jared, what's up?" And I hear her go, "Yeah, he's right here." I'm like, "What the hell does Jared Rome want to talk to me?" And he goes, "Hey, we had some coaches that backed out of the glide shot. Like, I need you to run the glide shot. Like, you come highly recommended from Colonel, from what you guys have done in Arizona." And I'm going, shit. Like a left-hand rotational guy, like I love rotational shot. But we had to develop our kids, and so I ended up running the glide shot. I actually ran that for 10 years at Ironwood. And finally, I joined the rotational crew this last year. Just because we need to get like some different voices in and some different perspectives to kind of help our kids just see some different things. So I've got a lot of experience working through a lot of our glide shot stuff. I really try to incorporate some rotational concepts, especially within the stand throw, because of applicability from what we've learned with how our kids apply it. And also want you guys to understand that my way is not the way, but with almost 20 years of essentially working through a lot of this information, this is what we found has kind of been most applicable for our kids. So, once again, blanket statement, my way is not the way, it's just one way of trying to help reach and teach our kids. So, same thing, the philosophy start in front of the ring. A lot of our stand throw concepts are really similar, and what I'll do is I'll talk through just a couple of slight differences within our glide shot with stand throw, and just kind of angles and things like that, and then build from there. The big thing that I really want to make sure is with our kids is just keep it simple, stupid. We don't want paralysis by analysis with our kids. So once again, starting from the ground up, working on feet and hip placement, starting to work on trying to create separation, and then build the timing and then break it down sequentially. So once again, within our stand throw, I've talked a lot about that the past couple of different sessions, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that. I just want to touch on one major key difference. When we first started going through this, we end up seeing kind of almost the death of the glide. The last great glider is basically David Stornell. A lot of people go with rotational concepts, but the big thing is you have to try and look at what is best for our kid. If you've got a kid that is maybe super strong but not very light on their feet, that might be a possibility that you try to take a look at. What you're trying to do is match essentially time and coordination and strength and the amount of contact time that you have with that kid. When we were in Arizona, our last year we had a kid that was as a senior threw 62 and 190, and he was 5'11" and maybe 280 pounds. He was, for lack of a better term, a brick shit house. And as a freshman, he could, I think he could stand for 45 feet as a freshman. Like, he was stupidly strong, and one of our coaches wanted to make him a glider. And so we tried to look at, okay, we knew his parents, and his mom and dad were both like 5'11", 5'8". We're like, okay, this kid's probably not gonna be a whole heck of a lot taller. Could he throw well as a glider? Yeah, he could. And the other coach wanted to keep him as a glider. We decided, hey, we want to make this kid a rotational kid because we feel the ceiling's a little bit higher. Because he had great footwork, strong kid, was super coachable, and we told him, said it's going to take a couple of years for you to kind of transition into rotational shot. And we're glad that we did that because he had a phenomenal senior season. But we have to also look at, like, we had time to be able to kind of help this kid, develop into that. So what you guys are trying to look at is, like, do we have the time for that, right? Do I only have it for the track season, right? That kind of has to be a determination for you guys. Are there multiple sport athletes that might be able to have enough contact time and things like that? We've got a freshman girl right now that I coach as an 8th grader that threw 34 feet as an 8th grader with the 4K. And we tried to make her a rotational thrower, and she simply cannot. Like, she will stand up and fall down. She just didn't have a whole lot of balance or self-awareness, but she's super strong and athletic. So we're going to continue to keep her as a glider because I think she has a higher ceiling than that. So it just depends upon kind of the kid between, whether you want to decide they're going to be a rotational kid or a glider. And those are things that you just kind of have to look at and have those conversations with that kid. So within that stand throw, we've gone through the squat extend, squat rotate extend, all of that. So the biggest difference that we teach a lot of our kids, we want to try and keep all of our concepts the same because of the amount of time that we have to be able to teach this. It just kind of simplifies and eases things between our gliders and rotators. But the biggest difference that we tell our gliders is simply this, right? We're trying to go from low to high, slow to fast in a linear fashion, okay? So our shot placement just has to simply be a little bit different than a rotational thrower. So rotational throwers, we want that elbow basically parallel to the ground or perpendicular to our axis or our spine. Now, a lot of the ideas is, you get the old 70s chemically altered steroids, 70s and 80s East Germans, where everything, that elbow's tucked in and then they're trying to lift early. But we tell our kids, like, how many of you guys can bench 600 pounds and squat 700 pounds? And a lot of kids go, well, no, we can't do that. So, like, we have to make this applicable for those kids. So we're trying to get out of that idea of tucking that elbow because what we're already trying to do is, in our experience, is pre-teaching those kids to shift and lift really early, when in reality they're not strong enough to be able to do that. So with a lot of our gliders, we'll actually have them take that elbow. We still want them to press that shot in. We still want that elbow out, but all they can do is they can drop the elbow from here because it changes once we start that glide. We're still trying to go low to high. I don't want the elbow tucked into the rib cage, but I'm trying to set the shot behind that right hip, if that makes sense. So rotational throwers, a lot more vertical and postures and the center of mass is over the top. Whereas our gliders, since we're starting from low to high, I don't want the elbow tucked in, I want the elbow out and back, but it can still be down. Because eventually when we finish, our goal is to still get that elbow to stay behind that shot. If the elbow's dropped and tucked into the rib cage, we shift and lift and we lose a lot of that rotational power. The other thing is on the left side. So a lot of gliders, like people talk about ripping the cord and trying to lift early. We still want to try and use that rotational concept of that long left sweep in that stand throw. That's a big thing that we teach a lot of our kids. But now since we're going low to high, if we follow the path of that elbow, instead of being tucked into that rib cage, we're trying to set behind that right hip. As we go through that glide and land, the goal is to still get that elbow to the low point and still be able to push that ball in a linear fashion. Or now we're trying to use rotational concept out of that left arm instead of blocking early and lifting. We're trying to use the left to create that longer sweep to be able to push. So the big difference is not tucked into the rib cage, out and down. if that makes sense. So we're still trying to set the ball behind that right hip, but we're using the left arm as a rotational concept to gather energy to stop and block in that stance. Okay, does that kind of make sense? Like our progression. So then when we're dealing with rotational or gliders with our shortened season, we go through the same progression with all of our kids, regardless of rotation or glide. That's just the difference. The gliders, we're just dropping that elbow back and away. Rotational throwers are staying up, and then we can still use our time efficiently within our season. So, same idea, right? Trying to get feet and hips to rotate, lead the throw, trying to create that separation. So that's the biggest thing that we end up kind of fighting. So we tell our kids we want to do 3 things really, really well. Now the good news is it's simplified, right? 3 things. Okay, can we sit or unseat out of the back, right? Can we create low hips to create a drive? Can we get the right foot pre-turned underneath us? And can we get to a good stance roll? If our kids can do those 3 things well in succession, it's generally going to be a really good throw. But the hard part is we're trying to create repetitive movement for the same stuff over and over again. So it becomes a little bit more dull, if you will, because you're trying to really reinforce some of the same movements in multiple modalities. So sometimes that's a little bit harder for some kids because we're doing a lot of the same stuff and trying to reinforce that. So once again, we've gone through kind of like our fronts, our step back fronts. Once again, the same idea of that progression, but instead of that elbow being tall, we're just having to drop that elbow just a little bit to feel that we're still kind of working that left side as a rotational concept. Okay? So for a lot of our gliders, what we'll start to do is we'll actually have what we call a torch step back front. So we'll start here, so it's easier for them to set that elbow a little bit lower and then create that sweep block and finish. Okay? Once again, really big on non-reverses. Our big goal is we want to get positions before the punch, right? Are we creating stretch reflexes, right? The smallest one within the wrist, next smallest across the chest, then the biggest across that torso. We want positions before we create the punch. Okay? Same thing with that non-reverse. Okay, so what we'll do a lot with, we're doing a lot more with hurdles. Every track has them. You know, the hurdle coaches always have those crappy ones they want to get rid of, and we always end up stealing those. So for a lot of kids, once again, we want them to be able to feel where they're at. So what we'll do is we'll take the hurdles, and we'll place the hurdles in the ring with the toe board. We'll have the kids place that left foot through that hurdle, and then we want them to raise the hurdle to about hip height when they're loaded into that stance row. So first thing that we will start with is we're trying to get the kids to not shift their weight, and we're telling them we don't want that left hip to touch that hurdle at all. So now they've got essentially some form of physical feedback, so that we're trying to work on extending that left side for them to not push their weight or shift their mass into that hurdle, right? Because that's one of the biggest issues. A lot of gliders want to shift and lift, and they lose a lot of that power because that right's not turning. So we'll start by just focusing on that left side. We're just saying, okay, we don't want that left hip to touch. We'll work through that stance row there. Then once they get the idea of trying to work that left block, not let the left hip, now we're thinking right hip to hurdle. So now they have to have a little bit more active right side and trying to drive that right hip through to the hurdle. So our right hip touches that hurdle at the front of the ring. Once again, you might have a 5'4" girl that may have to run the hurdle all the way down. You might have a 6'5" kid that may have to run that all the way up. But we just want, in that stance row, that hurdle height to be right at their hip, if that makes sense. But that's a big goal for us, to try and give them some form of feedback. Okay, and once again, still trying to initiate force from ground up. Once again, reverse is only taught if we start to see the action of the hips actively move them. Okay, and that has to do with that non-reverse. Now for gliders, we can be a little bit more intentional about trying to work on creating a little bit longer path and longer reach within that position. Like rotational throwers, we're creating more lift. Gliders more linear, so we can chase that a little bit more. Two things. So this is Sarah's PR of 61.7. Once again, our goal is to, like obviously they both reverse out of this, but our goal is to still be able to keep contact with the ground while still staying connected with the ball and punching through. This is our kid that's Route 62. This is his junior year. Really had a problem bailing out of it and dropping that elbow. That was something that we worked on fixing, but we weren't as concerned because of this. He was so freaking strong that he could extend that left and get off of the ground as a rotational thrower and still drop that elbow, and those were like technical cues that we were working. But his hips were so strong that he is still trying to create lift through the ball, which he's still in contact with the ground, which he was a pretty unique kid to be able to coach. So, once again, loaded pre-turn right, low, slow hips out of the back, and then left arm and shoulder closed until we get to that stand throw. So, it sounds super simple, and we tell our kids, yeah, these are simple things and simple goals we have to do. The idea is great, the how is really difficult. Okay, so that's our goal. We want a loaded pre-turn right, low, slow hips out of the back, and we want to be able to leave those shoulders back to get to that stand throw. Okay, completing all three will set up a great stand throw. And this is obviously after we've worked through the hip and hurdle drills and all that within our stand throw. So how do we get to that? So some of the things that we end up doing after we do our fronts, our step backs, and all of that stuff is this is more like later season. We'll simplify our drills to basically go stand through non-reverse, drill non-reverses, short glides, and then eventually work into full glides. We actually had a conversation about a month ago. We've got a friend of ours who coaches in Colorado Springs at the University of Colorado Springs. He coaches Air Force, coaches Boise State. And then another friend of ours coaches Arizona, and he's now running the Ironwood Throw Center up in Idaho. And he sent us a video of a girl, and he's like I need input. Like, I'm staring at this, I'm trying to fix this. She's not getting better. What are you thinking? And so what he was trying to do is he was trying to do a short, basically short long glide, right? A little bit higher hips, a little short, getting the right down. What was happening is this girl was basically lifting really early, and she wasn't finishing through that shot. So like in our conversation, we're texting back and forth and watching video, we decided to try to have him do basically a long short, right? Really try to get her to push, get that right underneath, and allow that right to turn. And he said after 2 days she was back to like essentially where her PR was at. So like a lot of our kids don't understand like the idea of short long or long short. So you guys just kind of have to tailor that to each of our kids. And I'll talk about that long short, short long here in a little bit. So this is like more like late season. Like generally, like we drilled the heck out of them and we're just trying to get them a little bit more comfortable. But the big thing is, the reverse does not happen unless the non-reverse is there. So I want to work through some of these drills. So once again, we're trying to create low, slow hips and to allow gravity to help us move and unseat. We're trying to get the right underneath, we're trying to keep shoulders back. Once again, still kind of that idea of like torque and separation, that rotational concept. So these are all the different drills that we will try to do. So I've already kind of explained those hurdle drills for essentially that stand throw. And we can actually use those hurdles in a couple of different ways to help with the left arm, left side. So what we'll do is we'll start kind of from the front of the ring and then work our way back, essentially into that full glide. So A-drills, a lot of people are very well aware of what those A-drills are. And it's one of the most difficult drills for kids to do because it is a loaded position that's only a right leg drill. And it's really hard, especially for overweight kids and things like that. So within our stand throw, basically what we're trying to do is extend that right foot out. I like to have our kids start with their right toe down the middle of that sector line, or middle of the ring. It really bugs me when our kids straddle the ring and then our hips open too early and we tend to shift. So that's kind of our first point of emphasis, and that's why we try to tell our kids, like, we're trying to get that toe right down the middle of that ring. So once again, within that A drill, we purposely do lock the left leg to make it solely a right leg drill. But when we get to that stance throw and everything else, we want both feet to work to help initiate that stance throw and work. So once again, the big thing is what we'll start with is just make this a left leg drill. A lot of people, and we initially taught this, is pushing off of the heel. Okay? Now, when have we ever done anything athletic on our heels? unless you're in football and you get your ass blown up, right?
Or
Like, and so I kept thinking about this. I'm like, how the heck, if I've got a kid that is not strong enough, how am I gonna get them to push off of the heel, right? And obviously, we don't wanna push off of the toe because our goal is to try to create our hips to be able to sink into that stance throw, right? So I don't want that toe to allow our hips and shoulders to rise. So we tell all of our kids, now if we've got a kid that's strong enough and comfortable with that, then we'll work to a heel. But we just tell our kids we want a flat foot. And the reason being is it creates more solid base, a little bit better balance, and more specifically, it gives them a little bit more to be able to athletically push off of that right. So we really try to focus on a flat right foot, and then what we're trying to really actively do is not shifting our weight, it's just trying to work what we call the push-pull. We're gonna try and push the right to pull the right, okay? So it's solely right leg drill. What I'm doing is I'm pre-turning that right leg to 90 degrees, and I'm really trying to focus on leaving my left shoulder and left armpit over that right knee. So just a push, pull. So we drill the heck out of that, and then what we'll end up having our kids do is we'll do a stop check. So we'll do an A drill, push, pull, stop check, and we'll work through a stand throw. And then we'll try to progress that into a full A drill non-reverse, so our kids are comfortable with that time, okay? From there, what we'll end up doing, we do a couple of different things. We want our kids' feet to land at the same time when they work from that unseat through that A drill, okay? So then what we'll end up doing, we call it a box drill, and we'll have our kids start with their feet square. And the big thing is we don't want their elevation to change, right? So once they load their hips, we don't want them to get taller, shorter, anything like that. But now, we're gonna have them load that shot. We're gonna place that left arm to the back of the ring until we're jumping an inch off the ground. And what we're trying to do is get our feet down as quickly as we can in that stand throw. So now all we're gonna have them do is it's trying to mimic having our hips square out the back to turn it open without opening our left side. So from here, we have them jump to be able to turn feet. So we're trying to actively teach them how do we get our hips to rotate underneath us while leaving our upper body and shoulders back and inactive until our feet land. So we'll work just without a shot, dry, and then we'll work down with the shot without throwing, so they feel that weight of that. Just being able to try to get those feet down. Because we're trying to mimic that unseat to A drill when we're in that non-support phase. From there, we will then work to what we call a step back. So same idea, but now we're trying to work on how do they feel comfortable getting that right preloaded. Now for kids, this is sometimes really hard for them to understand the concept. And what we're really trying to do is lead the upper body back. But from here, for a right-handed thrower, what we're telling our kids is we want to step and pre-turn that right underneath that right butt cheek to pull that left foot down. So once again, now we're trying to add that active kick and pre-turn that right. So we're just trying to get them used to that timing of how do we load the right and pull the left through to get to that stand throw. So a lot of our middle school kids will start with the stand throw, and then we'll actually work to a step back for them to feel that timing, and they can compete with that. So that's kind of our progression, working through from our stand throw to our A drill, and then trying to make that a little bit more active and applicable. Then, what we'll do is we will start using our fall drill and our O-sit drill. So our fall drill, it's just trying to get the kids to find the point at which they unseat, okay? And we call it the O-sit drill. The reason we call it that is we're taking one letter out because that's the feeling that they have to have. When they sit and fall and they go, oh shit, that's that trigger. So we're trying to get them to feel the O-sit, right? That trigger to be able to unseat. The reason we want them to feel that unseat is if they don't feel the unseat, the first thing that they're going to be doing is their hips are rising, right? And we tell our kids, if we were to look at the ball path from the side, we want to think of a check mark, if that makes sense. So if I've got a shot right here, I want to think about sitting to lift, if that makes sense. So we tell the kids the ball path has to be a check mark. We don't want to not reach that unseat because now we create this hill and lift. We lose energy. We're also trying to utilize gravity to help us to accelerate horizontally. Okay? So we start with that fall drill. And what we'll have kids do, wide open space, is just simply try to sit, fall, and then just recover. They're trying to reach where their body is, like reaching that point where they start to feel that sit and fall. From there, what we'll do is we'll go to an O-sit, fall, and reach. Okay? So if this is the toe board, what I'm gonna have the kids do is I'm gonna have them start in that A drill, and then bring both feet up. From here, we're gonna go to single support on that right foot, and all I'm gonna try to have them do, and we can use a partner to hold onto a hand so our shoulders don't pull, but I'm gonna have them in single support off that right leg, is they're gonna try to sit, and then reach for that toe board, right? Trying to feel that fall, okay? If they feel like they're jamming up to the toe board, we move them up 3 inches. So from here, single support, picking that left toe up. I'll talk about position of knees and left toe right in a little bit, but we're trying to get them to sit, reach that fall point, and then try to reach and open that left toe to the toe board while leaving that armpit and left hand over that right toe. Does that make sense? Okay? Any questions so far? I know like I'm kind of progressing through that, and I want to make sure that we've touched all of this. So far, so good? So if you guys look at everything we've done within those drills so far is trying to incorporate leaving that left shoulder back, right? We're trying to preload to set that shot behind that right hip. Okay? I'm going to skip that standing cone drill, and I'm going to talk about our next one. So then what we'll do is we'll use hurdles. So if I've got a kid that's got an active shoulder or active eyes, what I'll actually have the kids do is I'll take the hurdles and I'll place the base of the hurdle away, and I'll have them go and put that in the ring, or they're in that O-sit drill, and what I'm going to have them do is I'm going to have them tilt the hurdle. So a lot of kids, what they want to do is they want to stand up and pull, and then the hurdle basically tilts back away from them. So what we want to try and have is some form of a visual and kinesthetic feedback. So we tell the kids when we start, we're going to think about sitting and trying to tilt the hurdle towards that toe to start that unseat, if that makes sense. Because we've tried towels and things like that, but the more resistance we give with the towels, the more pull we get out of those kids. So we're trying to get something that the kids have this long, relaxed, inactive left until both feet get down. So we'll take that hurdle, we'll tip it towards our toes, and then as we start that unseat, I want them to try to touch the hurdle to their toe with that left hand. And what that forces them to do is to stay long and stay back to allow that unseat to keep those shoulders back. Does that make sense? I know I should have put a request in to bring a hurdle back.
I can go grab it.
It is fine. Well, I'm okay if we ever piss off hurdle coaches, so.
We can find a hurdler and take them more.
But like, we're trying to use stuff that's pretty commonly available and around. So those are a couple of different things that we do with kind of our glide drills to essentially help our kids feel that kinesthetic feedback, right? We're not trying to create this super active, tight left side. How do we create an inactive left side to keep separation, keep that shot behind that hip for as long as we can? So then we can go into our A drills and stuff from there. Okay? So does that kind of make sense how we would progress through those? Okay? Now, once again, we'll get the unseat. This gets a little bit more hunched over. Once again, it just depends upon the kid. He was really strong, so we try to get him to really curl a lot more because he was a lot stronger in being able to push off of that right. Just a general rule of thumb for a lot of our kids is I want those shoulders to get past those toes, right? If you got a kid that's pretty inflexible, not very strong, our big goal is just to get shoulders past toes so we can keep our weight back, because we know we're trying to sit and get 7 feet of horizontal energy. Whereas this kid really wanted to try and hunch over, which was more comfortable for him, okay? But what we're ultimately looking at is, are these hips sinking to start? That was our goal, okay? Simply trying to get to that unseat position, the O-sit. Okay? This dude was actually converted, he would have been a hell of a triple jumper. I had shown the one kid that threw 170. This is his best friend. They showed up halfway through our season. It was kind of like Step Brothers, you know, when they show up in interview in the tuxes, and they show up and like, we want to throw, but we're a package deal. We're like, okay, like we love to have both of you. And so, really would have been a hell of a triple jumper. He was maybe 170 pounds. He ended up throwing 52 feet his senior year as a black. Super snappy kid. So, same idea. Super flexible, like a fast switch type kid. A little tall out of this one, but you can kind of like see like he could really extend the ring well within that age roll. Okay, so once again, I've talked a lot through those hurdle drills. The partner age drills we've kind of gone away with just because we don't want that active left and that tension within that left side for a lot of our throwers. But you can do that if you need. You know, if you've got bands, you don't have a whole lot of throwers. If you got a fence behind your area, your throws rain or whatever, or go next to a fence with sidewalks. But same idea, we can try and create that inactive left by holding onto a band and trying to create that tension with a relaxed left side. We can do that with towels, visual bands, like jump ropes, whatever. So then, we're kind of trying to basically like break it down into individual pieces. Now what we're trying to do is eventually start to put this together. So whether it's cone, towel or shoe, like water bottle, you know, a lot of people try to kick the cone. You know, if you've got a kid that misses the cone and stands up, we've gone away from using cones because a lot of the issue is kids want to try and kick the cone, they stand up. So we try to go back to a lot of the O-sits in the unseat position to try to get them to sink their hips. And once they sink their hips, then we can start working on trying to create an active left leg. So we'll take cones or water bottles, and once again, we're big on trying to create that unseat, and then really trying to work through kicking that cone. So as we kind of work through that, the big thing that we're trying to get kids to understand is what do we do with that left leg, right? So we talked a lot with shoulders back, a lot of right leg stuff. So with that left leg, a lot of our kids, we tell our kids we want to think about dragging that toe for as long as we can. And when we start to feel that leg begin to extend on that left side, then we're going to let that left hip turn and open. And this is really hard for a lot of kids because when the left hip opens, the left shoulder wants to go with it. So for our kids, we really try to focus on that left toe push and drag off the ground. Really trying to feel that we're trying to keep that low left toe and trying to get to that unseat. And as they start to extend that left, keeping that unseat position, then they're trying to open that hip to get that left foot to the left of that midline of the ring. Does that make sense? So a lot of kids want to try and turn it open. You know, a lot of kids will cross and then open hips. So that's like kind of that next step before we get to kind of our two different entries. Okay? Does that make sense so far? And I know I'm trying to make sure I'm getting all this in. Okay? Okay. So then what we'll end up doing is after we've gone through a lot of those drills, we'll do a lot of what we call stop checks. We'll start with an A drill. We'll have the kids go through an A drill and then stop, check, and then go through a stand throw to make sure they're in a good stand throw position. If they're in a good stand throw position within those stop checks, then we'll try to make it a continuous movement through that A drill. We're not shifting, we're not pulling that shoulder, anything like that. Now before we get to kind of like a short glide and full glide, we essentially have two different starts that we talk about with our kids. We talk about a slow T, or we talk about a dynamic start. Now, with the slow T, if you've got a kid that's relatively strong, pretty balanced kid, not very ADHD, right? We have some of those ADHD kids that can't sit still for more than 2 seconds. Pretty controlled kid. What we'll teach them is a slow T. So we tell our kids we don't want the left toe to go past the right heel. We don't want the left knee to go past the right knee. And what we're going to think about trying to do is I'm going to extend the left leg and right leg to create a T. And then as I bring that left knee in, I'm starting to create that O-sit position and that unseat. So left toe to right heel, left knee to right knee, slow T. We're going to try and work the sit. And as I feel that unseat, that's the trigger for that left leg. Okay? The other one, if you've got a kid that cannot balance to save their lives, might be a lot more fast twitch type kid that you want to get moving, we talk about dynamic start. So what we'll do is we'll have them start vertically, and then simply what we're trying to get them to do is we're trying to get them to push their shoulders to their right toe, and as soon as they feel that they're balled up to get that unseat, then we're trying to push and go. So there's a couple of different ways we try to teach our kids to get to that unseat position. If we've got a kid that's super fast twitch, might be ADHD, can't balance, we'll have them start tall, and then we're trying to think about trying to push our chest to our toes to go, if that makes sense. Okay? Then what we'll end up doing is we will try to start with our kids with a short glide. Just trying to get the idea of timing. So within the timing of glide, our biggest goal, once again, shoulders back, sink our hips, and get that right pre-turn underneath. So we'll start with a short glide to feel our kids allow that box drill or those feet and hips turn underneath to get that right preloaded. So same idea, whether it's short glide or slow T or dynamic or slow T, in that short glide, we're just trying to tell our kids it's a 5-foot ring. We're just still trying to push that chest to the toes, and then we want to try and get both feet down together and stop check. Once they feel like they're in a good position, then we'll work to an actual throw from that within a non-reverse. As they feel more and more comfortable with that timing, we'll slowly stretch them out to a full glide. I had a girl last year that she could only use 6 feet of ring. And she always wanted to go like the full length of the ring and couldn't get across the ring. So like, we started with the short glide and said, hey, like, we're gonna use what you can do. So and you just have to tailor that to each kid. So as they get more and more comfortable, then we'll start to go to that full glide. So now as we extend the ring, our timing has to change. So the longer I get, the further I get away from the toe board, the longer I have to sit to be able to let my gravity and my weight help me move to start. So now, even if I'm the slow T, I really have to focus on getting to that sit position to allow my hips to sink to trigger my start. Now, the hardest part for a lot of kids is how do we get the right push and the left extend? Okay? And this is really hard because a lot of kids will have an active kick and then a late right and stand up. They'll have an active right and then no left and then their weight shifted. So we tell our kids, we think about opening a pair of scissors, right? As I sit, I'm trying to open the scissors. Okay? The goal is how am I going to get the push and the extension of that left? So we're just trying to get the idea of the timing of opening those scissors. So the longer I sit, the more I can push off of that flat foot to here. But once again, we're trying to create that check mark. Low to high, slow to fast. A lot of kids will tend to try to rush that. They want to go fast, and the first thing they end up doing is pushing off of that toe and standing up. So we really try to focus on our kids. The slower we go on the back, the farther it's going to go in the front, if that makes sense. All right, any questions so far? Okay. Like I said, it's fast, quick, and dirty, right? Yeah.
Builders Coach, when we had them, and they were doing, you're calling box jumps or whatever.
Box drills.
Box drills. They call them elephant turns. This is the elephant's trunk. You just have to jump here to turn your feet, turn your hips. But that was hilarious.
But, I mean, it's just different ways to try to make that relatable.
Yeah.
But the hard part is trying to, figure out what to do when, and if you've got some mentally strong kids that can handle that and you can drill the hell out of it, like, you're gonna have some success. But that's the hard part is that you're talking about 3 simple concepts that are really hard to tie together. Oh, I did miss one thing. So how do we tie it together? So, what I tell our kids is we'll go through and drill and progress that. And what I tell our kids is our full throw is O-sip, A drill, non-reverse. So then it at least kind of puts that picture and that segmentation that we've worked on breaking each individual piece together and then combines those, right? So kids, we've drilled the heck out of the A drill, we know that we're trying to pull right underneath here. We're trying to reach that unseat. So once again, like everything we drill, we're trying to drill a concept of leaving the left shoulder back to create separation early and often. But we're telling our kids, and if I've got a kid that's brand new, what we'll have them do is we'll have them start from that stand throw, work to that A drill, and then what we'll have them do is we'll have them do the O sit, fall and reach, stop and check, A drill, stop and check, and then finish with that stand throw. Then, we'll have them try to basically get to that non-support phase, where we're thinking about trying to combine that unseat and that A drill when we're in the air. So, that's where that short glide comes in. How do we get that unseat A drill within that short glide? So we tell the kids it's literally O sit, A drill, non-reverse. You're just trying to combine those when we get into the non-support phase. And then as they get more and more comfortable, we'll extend that out, create more sit, more active left, to be able to work, if that makes sense.
Another way to explain that as you get into your full glide is the opposite of shin angle that we talk about in rotational shot and discus is in order for you to make it a linear push into the sector, you have to increase the shin angle on your right leg. It's got to get past 90 degrees. If it's not getting past 90 degrees, if it's less than 90, then you're going up.
Yep.
So on film, you can easily show kids, hey, your shin angle is still under 90 degrees. This is why you're jumping in the air.
And that's why, like, we're still trying to, like, kids have a lot of flexibility off of that flat foot. Now, if you've got a kid that's super strong, and like we had kids in Ireland too that were already drilled and then we're through that heel, like, I'm totally okay with that. Because if they can push-pull off of that heel, great. The whole idea and concept, I feel like coming off of that heel is to get the kids to unseat out of that. But how many high schoolers are generally strong enough? And we always say, if you can do a pistol squat, then let's try coming off of that heel. Right? Because they're strong enough in single support to be able to get themselves to move. But if they don't, that's why we try to talk about that flat foot.
Chris talks about pulling the ball from outside the circle to inside the circle in order to get on your heel. So then it kind of makes getting onto your heel an indirect result of pulling the ball from outside to inside. Because you talked about when you get down to that bottom part, if you drop the ball, it should land outside the circle.
Yeah.
So as you rock back onto that heel, you should be pulling the ball back into your circle almost past your ankle. If you do that, the only way that you can get out of that position is off your heel.
Pick it off.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the hard part is that, we're still dealing with, if we're lucky at 10 in the season, the weather's fantastic, So we're trying to figure out how do we, try to utilize what we can. And that's the one big thing, like if the kid goes, you can try to come off the heel, okay, so you can just swap off that way, right? If they can do that, then we'll go. But a lot of kids just simply aren't strong enough. So, and like the other thing too, is when we teach them off of that flat foot, we have to try to pull their big toe out. Because they can't push off the toe.
Have them push on the top of the shoe.
Yeah, you have to have that big toe touch the fabric on the top. So it's still a flat foot, but they can't actively force the legs to push off that foot.
We talked about a combination of vectors, which is kind of the same thing you're saying, just a different way.
Yeah.
But you get the smart kids that they figure out, well, if I want to go that way, I gotta have both things working. I gotta have this push going this way and this pulling that way and going down. So I'm going in a straight line instead of if up and down.
Yes.
Or a lot of kids will do the crescent kick.
Yeah,
Which drives me nuts.
Well, and the other thing I didn't touch on too is, the start. So once again, like a lot of these German videos, like you'll sometimes see that they'll cross those feet behind. And I tell our kids, I'm like, if you have pencils pointing directly off from your hips, what happens when you cross that leg behind? The left hip's turning and opening, and now we're losing separation early. So that's why we always tell our kids, we want that left toe near that right heel. I don't ever want that to cross, because now my left hip is starting to point, and my weight and mass is starting to shift. So we're really trying to keep our kids to try to keep things as straight as they can to get into that loaded stance throw out of that glide, if that makes sense. So that was another big point of emphasis for us. We always see those kids that aren't strong enough and are trying to cheat, turn and open and pull that left side. We want to try and leave those hips closed for as long as we can until that left starts to extend. Then we can open that left leg, if that makes sense, to let that left turn and open once it extends. And like we've done, if kids are strong enough, we can try and do like more of a left leg drill, like a double wide, right? trying to work that double kick, and I can't do it right-handed, but it's strong enough to double glide from single back to double support.
Ross, can you talk about right foot landing position or placement in short glide as opposed to long?
Okay, yeah, I alluded to, short glide, long glide, so short, long, short. So, generally speaking, if you look at like, you know, the big 6'7" guys, David Storrell, things like that, David Storrell is a short, long. So he's taking a shorter glide and a longer base within the stand throw to lift early, if that makes sense. But David Storrell's 6'5", 6'6", right? Only has a 7-foot ring to work with, so he wants to try and get lift early. Whereas a lot of our shorter kids, we want them to be able to sit and go into long push to short stand throw, if that makes sense. So a lot of our kids, we're long short in the way that we teach that. Okay?
So where do you want right foot landing placement compared to the middle of the ring?
Okay.
Short long as compared to long short.
Okay, so if it's short, long, right toe's gonna be right in the middle, right? Depending, like on the average height of a kid of 6 feet, like it's gonna be close to the middle of the ring. If it's long, short, whatever kid's height is, we want underneath the right hip. So shorter kid, base is gonna be a little bit more
Which is
narrow.
probably gonna be over half.
Yes, over halfway, if that makes sense. But mostly for us, because most of our kids are not, like we've got a freshman that's 6'4", 205, and athletic as hell, but we're gonna make him rotate. If he was a glider, we'd make him short long kid, but he's gonna rotate. So,
So one of our coaches he's like the last glider.
The glide guru,
Yeah.
he's hanging on for dear life.
Yeah, and he's really good at it. But he teaches a stab drill, so to get that hip to fall, and so that leg is just. But he starts it from the back, and so they have to drop and push with that leg, and they keep the other leg neutral.
well,
Almost like a series of short glides.
Yeah.
Without putting your left foot down.
Uh-huh.
Boom, 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 left.
yeah. Now, here's the other question. Do his kids, is it more of the short, long, where they're lifting early?
He coaches a little bit of both. I
Just
would
like
say it's a
both,
little
yeah.
bit more of that, where he's not concentrating so much on the rotational right hip coming through. He does want that foot to
Right.
land at 90 or so,
Yeah.
but then some of that push might be more
Little
over
more
the top,
over,
more
right.
like the slingshot than around the corner.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So then, do they foul more? And is it finishing right center?
The only ones that ever foul are usually it's an emotional foul. You know.
Because ultimately, our train of thought within, like the rotational concept within that stance row, is the longer we can work the ground, the longer we can build energy. We're trying to push middle to left to create more power and force to the row.
His thought process is move the ball in as linear a line as you can.
Okay,
And just get your body out of the way to finish it.
okay.
Instead of, you know, in the rotational style, you're gonna have that ball poke around a little bit. This is get to the front, pull that right, and maybe get your body out of the way of the ball so the ball can keep
Keep it
going in a
solid.
straight line. Yep.
So, like I said, there's multiple ways, but this is, for us with multiple kids, multiple age levels, multiple abilities, this gives us more contact time and less trying to split hairs, if that makes sense. And that's something we promise them pretty good success with. So, like I said, we got a freshman girl that's really athletic that I'm excited for.
For high school kids, I've always liked the short long. I think it's hard for them to get that position, but if you can get it,
Yeah.
the long shorts, that's the power position gets harder for them, I think.
But once again, we're working rotational concept too.
Yeah, yeah.
Like same idea, if more we get that right underneath, the more
Yeah.
we can turn and work. Which is why we try to work through how,
Brett and Wayne use that catapult style a little bit more than Carly. Yeah, and Carly was 5 feet tall, but could bench 225 pounds.
which once again, a little bit more specific for,
Yeah,
so super strong and,
One I know was 6 foot long.
right.
yeah.
So she's on the ball for forever. Yeah.
But that's what, you know, a lot of the concepts that we've taught and have worked for.
And I think Carly's theory was, don't let the ball stop.
Yeah,
It's the ball's it's gotta keep moving forward, because she doesn't have enough height,
yeah.
release height to,
But once again, like we talk rotational throwers too, a lot of the rotational throwers that drop and drive to middle and stack middle, right, with that long wheel, same idea,
Right.
trying to get out of the way of the ball.
right,
Right, whereas we're trying to create a lot of rotational concepts and using the eccentric loading to lift. Same idea with the long short, how can we try to create as much separation as we can? And that's just our style.
You got any way to deal with the hanging left foot?
Hanging left foot meaning
They
Kick
do
it
the
high.
glide kick and then,
unseat.
okay.
Like, we work the hell out of unseat, and then what we'll end up doing, if we've got a kid that, let's say has a really active left, right, but still stands up, come here, Aaron. Like, we'll literally just try to get kids to, like both of us, once again, just a double support to sit, and then we'll work that left leg, and then work that other sit. So we have that counterbalance for them to try to feel, because most of it's just comfortability of falling in a direction we can't see,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the easy part, rotational throwers, we can see where the hell we're going. Gliders, I'm asking you to fall in a direction where you don't know where the hell you're going. And that's really hard for a lot of kids to trust, getting that unseat where they can't see a toe board, you know, the toe board with that mental block, getting to the toe board and stuff like that. But we'll do a lot of that with our kids that tend to stand up and push off that toe. We'll have them try to touch that big toe to the top of their shoe, and then try to get them to, one, sit in double support, if they're comfortable, then work to single support. And then work, the same thing with water bottles and cones, once we work that single support, is trying to kick through that cone, if that makes sense. But same thing with hurdles. We tilt that hurdle to the toe. Same idea, they have to sit to unseat to tilt that hurdle. So that's how we try to kind of mitigate that.
you can use that, or lose that line, like get into your glide once when you're beginning of the glide,
Mhm.
go in and then go down. You lose this line, now go ahead and stick your left foot out just a little bit. Yep, you lose this line from back
Yep.
down the left, so if they sink their shoulders too low,
Mhm.
then that kick is gonna be the equal and opposite of that,
Yeah.
be high.
Which is why we just want chest over toes and not drop the head. Right, you know, same idea with that axis, like rotational axis here. If I can get that, the eyes upright, but still let my chest drop to toes, I can still have that sit in that angle with the shoulders, or, the spine and back home, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sorry, we got off on a little tangent. All right, any questions? Anything didn't confuse the hell out of you? I'm good at that sometimes.
Thank you,
Yes,
Ross.
thank you, guys.
Yep. Thank you for coming, everybody. If you need anything, please let us know. We're always free to, open to offering information, whatever help we can give. And if we don't know, we know somebody who does know. So,
Yep.
thanks for attending, and great to see you. Hopefully we'll see you in March sometime.
Yep, if you guys need that drive information, just give me a name and email, and I'll take care of it. Yes, thank you.